everybody. Welcome back to indieRift Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Fontana. With me, I have my bros. It's the two of them, because this is the most bro-y show on the internet, as far as what I've been told. JK, LOL. We have Andy Asimakis, and we have Mr. Enough Matt Murray. What's going on, boys? How are you?
I'm screaming already. The show just started.
deep cuts right out the gate.
This is what happens when you have 32 minutes of us talking to each other before we hit record. It just becomes a mess.
Nonsense.
It's a complete nonsensical adventure here. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the internet's #1 second episode ever of indieRift Podcast, where we talk about indie games news, reviews, and previews for your enjoyment. And we have a hell of a show for you today. Check out our most recent episode of Dev Dive. Andy, who do we have on Dev Dive this week?
World of Grimm. It is Marvel's Snap at Home.
Yes, it is the Marvel. That's what we're told. Yeah, we had World of Grimm, which, spoiler, that's what I'm going to be talking about for our indie game adventures on this week's indieRift Podcast. So we're going to have a lot of fun. But before we get into that, please head over to our brand new Patreon. We could really use your support over there. Go to patreon.com/indirift, or you could go to indierift.com/Patreon, whichever one. Look, it's interchangeable. One leads to the other leads to this, and that
Just
leads
go,
to you.
just type Patreon and into your indie into somewhere.
Yeah, and $5 gets you pre-show or post-show and all that fun stuff. And $1 here will get you a bonus show every month, which we're going to record soon. We have to figure that part out, but we have a lot to talk about. But first, we have a written interview that just went up today on indierift.com, and it was a collaboration, but kind of between the three of us. I did add like a couple of questions, but It was mostly Matt, and then Andy chimed in a little bit. So Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about that article?
All Matt.
So
Matt did.
I've been kind of surfing the webs looking for the indies, and I stumbled upon Break the Loop. I reached out to the developer, and he wrote me back, and I was asking him if he wanted to be on the podcast, and he decided that he would rather a rendered interview. He's not so good with the English, and so we did a little.
To be fair,
yeah, we did a little rent interview. The game sounds awesome. It sounds like some weird combination of like Slay the Spire, Darkest Dungeon, and like Looper. And yeah, go check out the article. It details a lot of that. Their kind of philosophy over there, and just kind of what he does and why you should play that game.
And you could count that also on our Wishlist roundup. I guess we should add it, right? You know, why not?
Why not? It's
I do want to mention that I got that article out, and I still have 4 paragraphs of why the Nintendo Switch is important sitting in drafts since 2018 somewhere on WordPress.
But let us know, Matt. We got to know.
I know. It's we're really cutting edge.
You know,
the industry.
What we could do is we could just backdate the article to 2018 and just leave it there so that you could throw it on a resume. You know,
those 4 like unedited paragraphs that he's written.
Yeah, just throw them up there, just
as they are.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, what we'll do is we'll save it as a retrospective for when the Switch 2 comes out.
There you go.
This is
you
our
just
first
change it to
show.
Switch 2.
Just 2. Yeah.
2.
This is the first bonus show. You reading us those 4 paragraphs and us critiquing it.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And we can do a little retrospective. I like that. I've been thinking of what we can turn dual screens. What was it? Game. Oh shit! Why am I blanking? The other podcast we did that I wasn't the host of, that Taylor Allen was the host of.
Game Pass or Play?
No, that was a YouTube show. The podcast, crossplay podcast.
Oh, okay.
Crossplay.
I was thinking of like something we could do that's indie related, and I was thinking, Matt, maybe we could turn that channel into a full-on indie gaming review discussion, like the one that you want to do for this show.
Oh, like a round table.
But make it a round table show.
That's a good idea.
Of indie game that the three of us decide we're all gonna play, we're all gonna get, or whatever, and that could be fun. Let us know what you think about that, folks.
I love this so hard.
Yes, indeed.
I'm rock hard red.
Like solid. Solid
as a rock.
Broy show right here. Three bros.
Jesus Christ.
Just
Yeah,
talking
we're doing
about-
it. Shit, I'm so sorry. We did it. Fuck.
Yes, we did do it. Speaking of doing it, let's get into the indie game adventures, is where we are going to tell you about the indie games we've been playing this week. Andy, why don't you start us off?
Oh my God, Animal Well. Animal
I gotta be
Well.
honest. I'm gonna need you to sell me on it because every time I look at it, it just doesn't speak to me. But I
Okay.
think that's because I'm not a platformer guy.
Okay.
Yeah, see, on the opposite side of that coin,
Okay.
every time I've seen this, I've been more and more interested in what the fuck it is
Right.
because I don't understand any of it and it all looks beautiful.
All right, Andy. With that in mind, it is your job to both tell Matt what it is and tell me why I want it.
Why you should care.
So a little backstory here. I had 2 games on my list this week, but I scrapped one because I just love this game so much. I want to talk more about it this week
Ooh.
on the show. So some pretext. We had this developer, Billy Basso, on our show to talk about
Mhm.
Animal Well. I want to say maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half
It was a
ago.
long time ago because it was long enough where I completely forgot. Like, I know Animal Well was important. I know that it was a game that people had on their radar for a very long time. And I was like, oh, but in my Neanderthal brain, thought that came and went. I thought the game came and went. It was out. It did its thing and whatever. And then I'm seeing Animal Well. I'm like, wait, that didn't come out? Like, very confusing to me. So yeah, former guest of the show.
Right. And, we talked to a lot of developers between then
Mhm.
and now.
Yeah.
And I feel like after we do a show, it's like a reset. I forget all the information.
Oh,
It all just goes away.
Yeah. It's there. It's recorded for history because you're going to forget it immediately.
So when I played it, I was like, wait, what is this game again? I know we spoke about it for an hour with the guy and his PR dude in the same interview.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But I
Yeah.
had no
Yeah.
idea what to expect. Was it like, because Metroidvania came up in the conversation, but it was like an anti-Metroidvania.
Mhm.
Like his double jump, what would be a double jump was like a weird bubble thing he was saying. I'm getting flashes of the actual
Right.
conversation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's all just bits and pieces. So I fired it up, and at first it was your little blob guy and you're walking around. There's like little to no soundtrack. It's just background music, ambient sounds.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, this is the game. You just walk around and you explore and you enjoy the nice scenery. Beautiful pixel art, some of the best I've seen. Like leaves and bushes sway as you walk through them. It's very detailed.
The art style in general just looks
Yeah.
really wild.
So I thought, this is it. It's purely explorative. You walk around, you take in the scenery. There's little critters that walk around and run away when they see you, rabbits and rodents and deer. It's very chill. But then it was like, oh, there's like a health bar in the lower right-hand corner.
Interesting.
I got 4 little hearts. So I'm walking, and this ghost thing just comes right at me. This like blue blobby ghost specter thing. And I'm like trying to outrun it. Get to the next screen. So I go and I go and I go. Escape that asshole. And I pick up firecrackers. Okay, now I got a weapon of some kind. So I hit a little roadblock. I got to go back where the ghosty guy was. He was guarding something or a pathway because I couldn't proceed any further.
Mm.
So, game logic. You got an item. You got to use it somewhere. So I backtrack.
Yeah.
Throw the firework. It scares the ghost away. And I proceed. And then it dawns on me. Almost every single screen in this game is like its own little puzzle. It's a pure puzzle platformer.
Mm.
And the more you play, it's like a constant dopamine high. There are so many aha moments as you're playing. And I sent out a tweet late last night while I was playing this game. When Super Meat Boy first came out, or like Fez or Bastion, there was like a consensus that these games are going to be something special and that we would remember them for years to come. I think this is the next that.
That's a big statement.
This is the spirit of that. It's capturing that same energy. Because let me tell you, boys, the more I played this thing, I did not want to put it down. Examples. I'm walking through a little narrow pathway. There are 3 birds in a stack. Okay. Over a huge gaping abyss. How do you cross the abyss?
Can I
the
guess?
birds.
Oh yeah, let him guess.
I have
Go ahead.
heard. I have
Go ahead.
heard
Let him guess.
that you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Ooh.
Can you kill 2 birds with 1 stone so that you could jump over the lowest bird?
I don't think I've killed anything yet in this
Well,
game.
you know what I mean. Like scare them.
No.
No. Okay. All right.
So
Good guess.
when
Good
you
guess.
jump,
Good answer. Good answer.
so
Good answer.
the
No
birds,
answer.
that's a great answer. Great answer. So the birds follow you wherever you go. So if you jump, they're underneath you, tracking your every movement, so to speak.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. So you land on the lower bird,
Okay.
but you can't jump up because the middle bird's blocking you from jumping up.
Interesting. Okay.
So if you go all the way to the right, there's a little platform that blocks the middle bird, holding it in place. But you can keep going. Now middle bird's being blocked, and you're just cruising along. Now you can jump and make your way towards middle bird to keep along the path. But then third bird on top,
That bastard.
Third bird. That's,
there is no
that son of a bitch.
there's no platform to block that guy.
No, there's no platform.
How do you do that?
It's a conundrum.
And then as you're moving around, wait a minute, these birds turn transparent under light. So if I time my jump, top bird disappears. I am now going through it. And as I'm going to the left, I land on it as it rematerializes, as I'm now past the light.
Right.
Shit like this happens constantly in this game.
I love that.
It is nonstop. Another example. Your first weapon. That's not the firecracker.
Okay.
That's like that's like a,
A
Like
tutorial.
a starter.
it's ammo. You got to pick it up. If you run out, you run out.
Gotcha.
You get a yo-yo.
Yes, I've seen the yo-yo.
You
Yes.
think yo-yo, I can attack shit with it. Wrong.
No. Incorrect.
That's not happening in this game
No.
Wrong.
at all.
It is simply for entertainment,
Right.
as most yo-yos are.
So it's fun to play with from a physics mechanics perspective because it
Again,
kind of goes
yo-yo.
all over the place.
Yeah. Okay.
I love playing with it in water. It slushes around like you're stirring soup.
We're still talking about just yo-yos.
It's amazing.
We
Yes,
are.
we are.
Yeah, we're staying. This is still
Consistent-
yo-yos.
We're
Consistent
still
with
talking
yo-yos.
about the yo-yos.
Right.
Still consistent with real world yo-yos.
So when you get the yo-yo, again, I got a brand new item. It has to be used somewhere nearby because it's got to unlock more map, more for me to get to. So in the room next to the yo-yo, there are 3 switches all over the place. And this is actually in the Twitter, my tweet that I sent out yesterday, this little puzzle that I saw with the yo-yo. There's a switch underneath you. It's like, here's a platform.
Right,
You're
right.
on it, switch underneath.
Right.
You can't get to that
Well.
in any way.
Well.
There's no way to get to it.
Well.
But you have a yo-yo.
But you have a yo-yo.
But you can throw your yo-yo
And swing. Yeah.
over the
Mhm.
platform,
Mhm.
and it kind of like sticks to the side.
Right.
And as you move in one direction, it goes the other way.
Oh, you're letting
It's like
the
a
string.
this
The string
thing.
is. Oh.
And it hits the switch.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Another instance, there are enemies with shields.
Right.
Can you yo-yo
That-
behind them?
Matthew, you're already there, dude.
I'm very smart.
The yo-yo, you have to whack it from behind,
Uh-huh.
makes it drop the shield,
Still talking about a yo-yo.
which lets you walk through the enemy.
They don't even attack you.
Well, if you walk into it, you're fucked completely.
Oh,
Right.
And you can't just like take damage and bum rush through them. That's not going to happen.
No.
there's no
at all.
iframes.
Mm-hmm.
I can't
So-
wait to play this game.
Dude, it is. There was I think what I would call the first boss fight. It's like a giant ostrich that pecks at you constantly. And you have to go underground to hit switches to open up the door. But when you go underground, everything turns dark but the tunnels you're in, and the neck of this fucking bird just goes and hunts for you in all
Yeah.
these little holes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
I like
is
that.
wild.
just like a real ostrich
It is
encounter.
so fucking wild. And there's times where he can just get to you. It's like you're here. It's like he's like right on your face, and he's squawking at you because he can just barely reach you. Then he retracts, and you go about your way to find the next,
I didn't realize this was out
second
today.
of Force Witches.
I need to get paid tomorrow so that I can buy this game.
So
Pay the man.
amazing game. This is now we're batting 1,000 baseball analogy for Donkey's first published game on his video game endeavors. It's an amazing title. Cannot recommend it enough.
Andy?
You guys cannot.
Andy.
Yes, Steven.
What does batting 1,000 mean?
It's like when you're you don't miss anything.
Okay, but why is it called batting?
I don't
1,000?
know. I don't
even know. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know why.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
That's like
do you
beyond my pay
Because
grade.
no, I
Do I
guess.
wanna know?
Wait, can I guess? Can I guess?
You can guess. Yeah, absolutely.
Can I guess?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's like
so
a ratio
so
thing
at the
or
be-
number.
no,
Is
so
it
at the
one?
beginning,
I don't-
so at the
I don't know.
beginning of the season, each batter only gets 1,000
1,000
swings,
points?
and so
No.
at the end,
No.
and so then at the end of
No.
the, and so
It's
but like so
only-
if you go over
No.
that, you can get 1,001.
No.
You bat 1,001
He's at-
because you were a
No.
designated hitter for the for
Mm-mm.
one
No.
for one bat,
He's at
and
the plate.
it is a
He only has
percentage.
5 swings left this season.
It's a percentage, and the
you
way
hit 1,000% of the
No.
balls that were thrown at
No.
you. That doesn't make any sense.
No, let's
You're lying to me.
hang on. Batting 1,000 means 100%, and it's because
That doesn't make any sense. Why would they just not
hang
call it
on.
100%?
because it's
Let's
not
go batting
actually,
100.
It's not actually 1,000. It is 1.000
That's dumb.
because they do batting averages
Fucking Mr. Baseball
by
is missing some brain
hundreds
cells.
of a point. So if you're batting 300, you're batting 30%. If you're
Anyway,
batting-
next week on Who
20
Gives a Shit About Baseball, me and Andy are going to talk about horror movies.
That math ain't mathing, guys.
that math do be mathing. Speaking of math, that's a segue. Matt, tell us about Tales of Kenzera. I've seen a lot of people playing this game right now. A lot of people.
So I'm going to start off by saying I had a really good time playing this game.
Uh-oh.
But the overwhelming mantra that I kept returning to, and I think it kind of describes this whole game, is despite whatever, I'm still having fun. And unfortunately, there's a lot of despite this. I'll get the good out of the way. The story is amazing. It's really well written, very well acted. It's a story about this character Zhao. He loses his father, and it's his exploration of this shamanic world where he's trying to bring his father back. So it deals a lot with loss and death and kind of recovery, it's really well written and really well done. It's worth playing for that alone. The combat is really slick, really fun. You're swapping between 2 masks that you have, and one of them is like a Mega Man style buster, and the other one is kind of like Zero, so you have swords. And they each have their own skill tree that you can unlock different skills with. They're pretty short little skill trees, but they're still pretty fun to get through. The boss fights are really, really fun, and there's some fun twists in the stories. The downsides, I think, you get cool powers. You get cool like explorative powers. This is a Metroidvania, and at the beginning of the game, you're like, oh, cool, like I can like dodge now, or I can pull myself up on a tether or something. But over the course of the game, and in my opinion, in a good Metroidvania, you're constantly using a combination of your new powers, your old powers, and everything. And there are sequences in those games where you're really kind of like putting everything together, right? Like
Right.
you're double jumping, you're dodging, you're whatever you can do in the games, and this game, there are very small doses of that, but really it feels segmented to where your powers are used in a really large way. And I think it kind of draws back from how good this game really could have been. The combat is super fun. The problem is that a lot of it takes place in these really small gated rooms. Like you step into a room, the walls close off, and you got to fight everything inside. Walls open back up, and you continue on your way. And the problem with that is that all your powers are super cool, would be really super cool in like a free form open area, but you're like constrained to this tiny little room, and I found myself getting a little frustrated, like getting bounced off of stuff and not really being able to take advantage of all of the things, the movement tech that I've unlocked, and all the powers that I've unlocked.
Do they
Um,
do they like tailor the rooms to the newest like ability you got? Like,
well, no, so that's kind of like the disappointing thing is this switching between the two masks. It's a red and a blue, and as you get kind of past the early game, you start coming encountering enemies that have shields, and the shields will be either white, blue, or red. A white shield, you can use either of the powers to dissipate. Red and blue, respectively, you use those masks, and that's really like that's really it. Like those
Mm.
are most combat rooms are a combination of you start out with a bunch of regular enemies, some shielded enemies pop up after you defeat that wave, and then like the last wave is some combination of both that's harder. Um, and it really did. It was like a little disheartening that I kept encountering these rooms throughout the whole game. I did beat the game, so this does kind of persist throughout the whole thing. And I don't want to take down the game. I don't want it to make it seem like I didn't have a good time because I really did have a good time. I just wish that these parts were a little bit better. I think that it succeeds the most in its story, and despite the fact that the combat takes place in these tiny little rooms, it is really really fun. I would have loved to see what you were talking about in just like a little bit more use of your traversal powers
Hmm.
in the combat rooms. Um, and maybe just like an expansion of the world where I felt like there's that like rush. Guacamelee is probably my favorite example of this, where like near the end of both of those games, you're like double jumping, you're switching worlds so that like you can grab onto this wall and then jump to the other wall, and you're like switching gates, and you're using the full gamut of everything that you've been given during the game, and that even persists into like the final boss fights. And I didn't feel that here. Um, the end of the game is great. The last boss fight, not my favorite, but the end of the game and the story and the way they tie everything together is fantastic. I would say, despite all of that, which, like I said, is kind of the mantra for this game, it's still worth picking up if you really have like the itch for a Metroidvania. Um, and probably on sale if you don't have that itch, but you're still into those kind of games. The writing is awesome, worth it for that alone, and it's not a bad game. It's like a 7 out of 10, I would say. It's a really solid game with some very noticeable flaws, especially if you're kind of deep into that Metroidvania territory. You know what I mean? You've played a lot of them.
It sounds like it's lacking a certain synergy. That's what I'm
There
hearing
are
from
some
you.
synergies that are certainly lacking.
Yes, the lack of synergies.
No, but I get it. I feel like any Metroidvania game, as you're getting towards, Act 3 of, a game, it's all about the marriage of all your abilities and how you've sort of perfected use of them over the course of how many hours and just seeing like the full potential of your character.
Yeah.
It sounds like you wanted that to happen, or at least to have the gameplay kind of rise to the level of what the story was
Yeah, and there are
a
some
little
like
bit.
small sections near the end where it happens, but they're not like, I know this is weird, but they're not long enough for it to
Mm,
feel as visceral as it should.
mhm.
We'll say like on the tail end of stuff, I did encounter some glitches. If you pause the game and unpause it until you walk backwards, you can't move. Like you just can't move. It does that
Huh.
every single time. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, there were some parts of the game where I felt like, not the whole game. Most of the game is pretty fair, but there are parts of the game where I felt my death was more because I hadn't gotten to the next screen yet and seen it, and like being thrown into that screen
Mm.
immediately killed me. You know what I mean? Like not knowing what that screen was immediately killed me. And most of those happen during these like run sequences where you're kind of, like the Crash Bandicoot, you're running from the ball.
Right.
Or like, you're running out as Samus from
That's
the
the Sonic,
exploding.
level design where you go fast until you fall into a spring that hits you into spikes.
And so that it's exactly that. It's these rush sequences where where
Your
you're
favorite, Steve.
Fucking
yeah,
hate that.
yeah. And
Your
I hate
so
it.
absolute fucking favorite.
there are parts of the game that unfortunately do fall into that trap. And so those were some of the more frustrating times I had. Luckily, the combat and the story really won me over, and pushed me through this game. It took me probably about a week to beat, maybe about, I would say around 10 to 15 hours, maybe a little bit less than that. But yeah, it's a good time if you, like I said, if you have an itch for a Metroidvania, it's worth picking up. Music also really good.
Good stuff. So I spent time this week playing the game of our most recent guest for Dev Dive. I dove into World of Grimm. It's been, a month and a half or maybe 2 months since I really picked it up and dove in. And after talking and just sort of playing in order to prep for the interview again, and then also kind of getting the itch to play again after the interview, I realized we didn't really talk much about it on the show. We haven't really talked about it even before we switched over to indieRift podcast. So World of Grimm is very similar to Marvel Snap in the simplicity of game design and the speed of which matches should take. It is 6 turns no matter what. It's just 6 turns. You have your 3 lanes. Each lane becomes a different has different effects, just like in Marvel Snap. But it's set in the Brothers Grimm sort of fairy tale universe. So like all the cards are based off of those fairy tales, but they're all they're done by the artists, contracted artists. And then one of the unique things that they do is all of their paid content is to buy variant cards. So like any card that comes out in the game, you can collect. You can earn, collect, whatever it is, as you're just playing the game. But the variants are the really special stuff. Like there's one that was came out during PAX East when we were there. That's kind of like this like cyberpunk futuristic Rapunzel, which is like awesome. She kind of looks like Star-Lord a little bit, like 2 blasters and like these cool goggles, but like really long hair. Just some really cool stuff. And like they do themes in that way, like other characters are cyberpunk, and the art is just gorgeous for the most part. They're constantly adding, they add a new card every week to the game. So there's always something new to unlock. But it's very simple. Like these cards all, you can build a deck that works really well together, and like, or it's your classic card game kind of tropes, like, oh, this is a burner deck, this is a deck that feeds off of lower cost cards, so you want to pack a lot of those in your deck, so that you could play all those cards and then capitalize on them at the end by putting a big banger down that like sucks up or like is more powerful with weaker cards on the field, stuff like that. But conversely, you really can play this game without making a quote perfect strat, because where you're actually placing can be just as important as the cards you're placing. Like I'm not that far into the game. Like I don't have dozens of hours in. Like I have probably 30 or 40 cards unlocked from the base set. So like I don't have those really big brain decks right now, but I've been able to win plenty of games just outthinking my opponent as far as, bluffing, like setting up one lane to look like I'm trying to do like a move there, so they start placing all their guys there, and then I just take the other 2 lanes because they were focused on trying to like take that first lane or whatever. The other thing it does that's really cool is it has a day-night cycle where some cards have special abilities that are only active during a day cycle or only active during a night cycle. There are locations that change that day-night cycle, so like you won't know there like until it's revealed if the cycle will change. And there are cards that also will trigger a cycle to happen. So
how is the day-night cycle like denoted in the game? Like, so if you're playing a match, where is that?
There'll be a sun or a moon on the
Gotcha.
board, so it'll tell you.
And does that changes over the course of your 6 turns?
I think it's randomized to start, and it could stay the one. A location may change it. Mm-hmm. Like you can't really plan for it, but you could have a card that could change it to what you need it to be. There's a card that I forget what it is, but it I think it gains one attack for every time it changes. So you could have cards that are constantly changing it and just
Yeah, and
pumping
you're
up
just
this
growing,
low cost card. The other cool thing that it does that's a little different from Snap is cards can be killed. And when they're killed, they still stay on the board. They're just dead on the board. So you can clog a lane of dead cards on your opponent if you have cards that directly attack other cards. The cards don't attack each other. They just gain power in the lane like a normal Snap. But some cards actively attack other cards. So if you have those in your deck and you know that, you need to get rid of, your opponent's card to take a lane, you could do that. Block the lane. They can't add anything to that lane because they already put 4 in there, and then boom, you've got that on lock. So it's got a lot of that. I worry that it's not going to have the mass appeal, obviously, of the Marvel license, obviously of a game that's been around forever, like a Magic or even a Hearthstone. Hearthstone being, its own pulling from other IP as well.
Right.
But if you're looking for something that has a deep enough strategy that is easy enough to pick up and, play for a little bit, it works great on Steam Deck. It's going to come out on mobile at some point. I think they said later this year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I think this game on mobile probably takes off way more than it takes off on PC.
Yeah, and it's free to play, which is great, and it doesn't force microtransactions down your throat at all. It is if you want to buy gems to get these variants, by all means, please do. And the most amazing thing that I think everyone should know is that the split for the artists when you buy a variant is very much favored towards the artists. Like, that is how, yes, they get paid for making the art up front, but they get a huge cut of any variants that you buy.
I think that's the coolest part for me, listening to the interview, was just like how clearly, I forget what his name is, Josh gave a shit about artists and treating them as a equally important part of this game and the team and just the industry in general. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, it's one thing to... this feels like the perfect game for an indie game lover, like, this doesn't have a huge machine behind it. It doesn't have a huge IP behind it. It doesn't have a huge publisher behind it. It functions, and it's good, and it's addictive. Like, once you start playing, you want to just keep hitting continue, like, just get to the next one. That's the other thing. There's no fluff here. You have a main screen and 3 options. Look at your deck, play a game, go to the store. That's it. The store is spend your gems or buy gems. That's it. The card is just building your deck. If you want to just look at the cards you have, you could do that. And then it's play a match. And it just loads up a match. You play somebody, win or lose. Your little bar goes up. Your cards level up too, but they don't level up like... they don't unlock abilities in the cards. They just unlock the way they look. So that like, eventually you can get like a level 10 and they'll like I don't know if it was level 10 or if it was like a special version of the card, but like they'll pop out of the frame like in Snap. It's like that. And every like 2 levels or so that you gain on a line, you unlock a new card. So there's always something to unlock. You're basically unlocking a card every time you win and every 2 times you lose. That's kind of like how I've seen it working as I've been playing.
I don't remember from the interview. Is there a specific reason they went with the Brothers game and didn't just do like, this is our universe and like we're gonna make this? These are our characters.
So not explicitly, except for that it's got its open license. Aside from that, it seems like they're doing both, because they are adding original characters and original story ideas that involve these characters. That part isn't released yet. There is going to be a story mode, which you could check out. Check out the Dev Dive interview. We go into this whole thing, but essentially there's going to be this entity that's bringing these characters from all the Brothers Grimm universes into this world for a reason. And then there's other monsters and other creatures and other things that are also affecting that world. That
kind of reminds me of the Dark Tower series, where it's just all of Stephen King's everything all in kind of one thing.
Yeah, exactly. The base card of Snow White is just, she's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. My goodness, just the art is just, it's phenomenal. Definitely check it out. Especially if you like those games, if you're looking for something a little different. If you're a Snap head, you know, it might not be the kind of game to pull you away from it just because of the endorphin rush you get from, you know, unlocking Marvel characters. But if you just like card games and you got tired of Snap and you haven't gone back to Snap in a long time and you want something a little different, definitely check it out. World of Grimm.
Yeah. One of the last things I want to say is one of the cooler things about this interview that I thought that I don't hear a lot of developers say is how non-avoidant he was with the Snap comparisons, because I feel like a lot of times when you
he welcomed it.
Yeah, when you walk up to a developer sometimes when you're like, oh dude, this game reminds me of Super Meat Boy, you know what I mean, there's like this weird aversion, like, no, this is my original idea and it's not Super Meat Boy. And I'm not saying that that's industry wide, but sometimes, you know, you get a little bit of that kind of pushback. And he was like, dude, if you say that this game is like Marvel Snap, I'm fucking amped because that's what I'm going for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going for a Marvel Snap. Like,
yeah,
it looks cool. It was a really good interview. Definitely give it a listen.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right, let's get into the indie news report before we get into our wish list roundup, because there was some indie news that has come out this week. A little tiny game. Don't know if you guys have ever heard of it.
So tiny.
Hades 2. Hades, small game, made sold a couple copies. Hades 2 comes out.
You may have heard of it.
Yeah, maybe you heard of it. But yeah, Hades 2 just launches. It's just like, here it is, enjoy it. And the indie dev community, not too pleased about this, Andy.
Not happy.
Ooh, so I am really thrilled about this topic. First of all, I had no idea it was a thing until I read it. I was like, oh shit, this is actually happening.
And it makes sense too. Like, as you read it, you're like, oh shit.
There's like a slight backlash-ish to this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a little reluctant to share my thoughts because I don't want to piss people off, because I don't think I'm on the side you think I may be on with this particular bit of news.
Well, so let's, I mean,
yeah.
I'm going to be very devil's advocate-y in this conversation, which I think is nice. You know, we can't all just be like fucking, oh yeah, we all agree. But yeah, I am eager to get into it. So let's get into it.
So this is coming from what is this? 80? What is this? 80 level? 8.lv. Never heard of this website, but it's the
series of first today, guys.
What's that?
This news, this website, it's all brand new to me. This is
I've never seen this before.
A lot of firsts.
But Terry Mills has written this, but I'm just going to scan a little bit ahead so you could give the click. It will be in the show notes if you want to read the article yourself. Shortly after the unexpected release, some indie developers were a little bit disappointed with the lack of notice about the release of this long-awaited game. They believed that releasing Hades 2 without warning disrupted the plans of many lesser-known teams. Amidst the discussion, a developer behind the horror game Country, inspired by PS1 games, humorously remarked that they deliberately chose a quiet release week, but it didn't save them from the unexpected Hades 2. And the tweet is, good thing we picked a quiet news week to launch a video game. I think we'll be okay. We've been able to spend the last 6 months building nice momentum with Crow Country and relatively small genre overlap. Just funny that when planning last year, we talked about how Hades 2 was hanging like the sword of Damocles, ready to drop on any launch week. Then Aggro Crab, which is
Oh, I
fan
have
favorite.
that. I have not played that yet. Holy
Yeah.
Gee, I
shit.
wonder why,
I wonder
Andy.
why.
My God. Yeah, I
Um,
wonder why. Thanks, Animal Well, for being so good.
Damn.
Where Aggro Crab said we're actually fine. I feel bad for people releasing this week though.
Okay, can I start?
Hold on. Wait, hold on. I want to get another couple
Now
good
that the
ones.
thoughts are churning in my brain and I'm getting a little aggravated as you read these tweets.
Devolver Digital tweeted out,
Shut
ha
up, you
ha,
bitches.
ha ha ha, an internal marketing call ended abruptly because Supergiant Games released Hades 2. Goodbye, coworkers.
Oh, Devolver,
That's a good
don't
one.
change
Yeah.
everything.
Oh well, so he just came out. All right, see you later.
Don't change.
Dan Fornance said Rivals 2 is planned for late 2024 because I have incredible foresight and knew that the spring was booked up with Hades 2 coming out. So before we get into your thoughts, Andy, I just want to give my surface level thoughts because I think it's
Sure.
more in line with what the concern here is.
Go ahead.
Is that they quote unquote should be a little bit more aware of the detrimental effect this could have on the smaller developers that don't have a Hades in their backlog and people eagerly awaiting their next game, that it's almost like a cannibalization of the indie game genre.
Mhm.
That being said, no. It's their prerogative. Yeah, it kind of sucks for those developers, but like if your game is good, regardless if Hades 2 comes out today, yesterday, tomorrow, 3 weeks from now, if your game is good, eventually people are going to find it, people are going to play it, people are going to burn through Hades, you know, they'll be done with it, whatever. And quite frankly, most of the games that we're talking about this in that way don't have genre overlap anyway. So, I mean, I didn't play the first Hades. I played a little bit of it, but I wasn't enamored with it like everyone else was. It's just not my cup of tea. But Aggro Crab, yeah, I'm in for that. I'm in for that. But yeah, let's Andy, let's put that shoe on your feet now.
All right. So I understand the sentiment completely because we've lived in an age now we've seen twice where Horizon Zero Dawn has launched against
A Zelda. or
Breath of the
something
Wild
there. Yeah.
and then Elden Ring with its sequel. And I think that's the line they're drawing between Hades 2 dropping among other smaller indie games. But we play a lot of indies, you guys.
Mhm.
And on this
You
show,
might you might say we're indies nuts.
correct. We are indies nuts. And every week we do this show, there's games that Matt predominantly mentions that I have no idea even existed before he breathed the words of the game onto the show. That's because the sheer volume of games that come out in this space, it's innumerable.
Mhm.
It's nearly infinite. So when is a good time? Now, is the idea that Hades give a date so we can all prepare as a collective indie development game space?
Yeah.
Let's avoid this window. Or is it just they want to shadow drop it whenever they want, but it's always going to be in someone's lap when their game comes out? Now, Crow Country is a game that speaks to my heart. It's PS1, it's horror. I've emailed them twice. I've messaged Adam
Did
on
you email them
Twitter.
the same time as Supergiant?
Supergiant is going to be on the show this year.
Mark my words.
Gonna-
Mark his
it's
words.
gonna say
Mark
that.
our words.
Slow
So
down.
I've emailed both Adam and Tom. I think they're brothers about Crow Country because I've been following them for a very long time. But with all the respect to them and their amazing looking game that speaks to me, and I would pick a million times over Hades because it's horror and PS1. That's an Andy game. I don't think Hades impacts your sales because those who want to buy your game, they're already in it. They know your game is niche. It is a PS1 style horror game. It's not it wasn't on a stage at the Game Awards. It doesn't have the fanfare.
Right.
So I don't think this impacts you. Now, again, it might, for all I know.
Well,
But at least,
to be fair, they did say they don't think there's much overlap
Right.
there anyway. But yeah,
what I don't appreciate is I'm scrolling through these tweets on this article. There's one from a guy named Richie, which you skipped over, which is a little aggressive, and I'm gonna read it. And I think this is why I was like, no, tough titties, because this take is a little bit much for me. I'm happy a sequel of a massive indie game is doing well, but can we collectively stop doing shadow drops for majorly anticipated games? First of all, why not? Why are you the police with that? And he goes on. It is respectively a massive fuck you to your peers who have had to squeeze the most out of, in most cases, minimal marketing budgets. I'm lost for words, because why should Hades consider the entire indie space when they release their game?
Well, all right. So I'm going to be that voice.
Be that guy, Matt. Be that guy.
by the way,
So-
this is a partner manager at Raw Fury. By the way, that's who this Richie guy is.
Oh, okay.
I
For our
think
friends of the show.
Exactly.
So Supergiant is kind of an arbiter of the indie space, right? They are kind of this. They basically just release gold like 90% of the time. Like everything that they've released, maybe aside from Pyre, which was still pretty fun, has been absolutely incredible. They're a name in the industry.
Dare
that
shit
people
on
know.
Pyre, Matthew. Pyre is a
Listen.
masterpiece.
Is it? Andy?
It's
I-
a divisive masterpiece.
I don't even like basketball, but I love Pyre. Go on.
Yeah. Anyway, and I can understand where, somebody who is inspired by Supergiant to make indie games, and even if it isn't something that's up to the caliber, maybe even if there isn't any genre overlap or interest overlap, could be upset by, holy shit, like one of the biggest indie games. It doesn't even matter if there's no genre overlap, right? Hades, Bastion, Transistor, all of these games have a pedigree with them. People who love indie games understand that pedigree, and people who love indie games, in a large part, are going to flock to some of these larger indie games, the same way that they did
Right.
with like Cult of the Lamb and any of these.
Mm-hmm.
And so, while I think for the most part you're right, so like Crow County, you're probably right. There's not going to be a ton of overlap there, but there is going to be a little bit of overlap. And that initial cash infusion probably is more important for a tiny studio than it is for Supergiant. And, like me, like I didn't know what Crow County was until you just said it. I would probably love that game, but if I had to decide right now if I'm going to spend $30 of my paycheck on Hades 2 or if I'm going to buy Crow County, I'm definitely going to buy Hades 2. You know what I mean? That is the game. I've been waiting for it.
Mhm.
The industry's been waiting for it. Even people who are outside of the indie space, like people who aren't indie heads, have been waiting for that game. And I do think that there is a responsibility on their shoulders to kind of, I don't know what the best way to say this. 'cause
Read the
they
room.
can't- Yeah, to kind of read the room is probably the best way to put it. Yeah. And say, oh, we're huge. We're fucking gigantic. And
It's in the name.
yeah, right. Yeah, Supergiant, right? And just kind of look out for those below you. You're right in that I think that no matter when they dropped, whatever was dropping around that probably is going to get somewhat cannibalized by its release. And that's where I think it would have been it would have been nice for them, and maybe like kind of would have been more with the decorum of a studio of their pedigree to say, hey, everybody else in our space, we're going to release on May 8th. You know what I mean? Like we're going to release early access on May 8th. Avoid this time. You know what I mean?
So I think that's the one thing. We haven't mentioned those two words yet.
Early access.
I think you could sell me more on this argument if it wasn't an early access release.
But
I think
they've said themselves though that Hades 2 early access is more feature complete and features more content at early access launch than the entirety of Hades 1.
Oh, I get that. I mean, I'm pretty sure they've learned, what their early access could be now going forward, but this is still not the complete game. this is going to be worked on for a long time before it's complete. How long was Hades before it was 1.0 release?
I think
A
it was
Do you
while.
remember?
I think
I
it was
want
a
to say
full
about a
year,
year.
right? Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
was a
Right.
full year.
How long was Baldur's Gate 3 before that was
2
2
to
years.
3 years.
fully out?
I think it was
So
2
again,
It was 2 years. They did a demo, right? I think they did a
Did they?
I think they did a short demo, took it down, and then did their Act 1
sure.
early access.
Yeah.
But I want to, Andy, I think your mind is in the right place, except because, but I think that both of you are thinking about dollar value, and I don't think
I'm not thinking about dollar value at all.
Well,
in my position,
think
I
about
just
major outlets. If there is a 5% chance that an IGN or whatever, Polygon, whoever,
Mhm,
a 5% chance that they would write about Crow Country,
mhm.
that is now 0%
Definitely, yeah, they're definitely not
because Hades 2 came out. Like, it's 0. There's no shot they are ever going to take a chance on telling people about a different indie game because they know their clicks are going to come from Hades 2 articles. Look what we did in Hades 2. Hades 2 is problematic. Hades 2, boob physics. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. If they talk about it because it's Hades 2, it's going to get clicks. Whereas, you know, you look at indie games that didn't have a following, or indie games that kind of came out of nowhere that all of a sudden became indie darlings. How did that happen? It happened because a major outlet or a major streamer or a major podcast found it and gave it a platform. It's why we do what we do, because the Hades 2s of the world get plenty, but the Crow countries don't. So I think that is, at least for me, like, that's where the sentiment comes in. Like, if I was the grandpa of the situation, and or the godfather of indie gaming, and I was like that darling, and I had the Hades 2 pedigree or whatever, I think I would hope that I would be a little bit more cognizant of that aspect of it, where, yeah, we get it. Just a heads up, even if it was a window of we're coming out in May, that might have been enough for people to say, all right, well, we either going to get our game out in April, or we'll wait until June or whatever. You know, take your minimal marketing dollars that you have. I mean, the three of us know how expensive it is just for us to promote our podcast. Like, if we wanted to run a week long ad on Facebook or Twitter, it's going to cost us like $1,200 to reach the audience that we hope to reach. Now, video games, their budgets may be triple that, you know, whatever, maybe. It's just burning money at that point, because you're not going to get the coverage now that Hades 2 came out. It's just not going to happen. Which actually works better for us, because now maybe we could get some guests on the show and, like, you know, be able to you know, blow the horn at the hilltop. But I think that's more or less what's a big issue.
That's probably the larger issue. I do think that there's some middle ground where, you know, the responsibility doesn't lie solely on Supergiant's shoulders to make sure that your game is good. But again, I think that in my mind, I'm always going to return to the idea that, like, you're the granddad, you're the older brother. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
you do need to beat the shit out of your younger sibling sometimes.
I truly get the sentiment, and I think,
but let them know that you're going to kick their ass first.
What Steven said is
I'm going to beat your ass if you open your mouth again.
Steven's points are nudging me, because I understand a game of this caliber kind of takes all the air out of the room, because now it's like this is the next big thing, and we know, given its reach, covering it is paramount to other smaller titles.
Mm-hmm.
But it just rubs you the wrong way, because I feel like these guys sat in a room, put this game together, poured their hearts, and said, we're going to surprise our fans and drop this thing unannounced, unexpected, and do a good thing for our community. And then this happens. Like, now this is also a factor. when you're releasing a game? Like, okay, we're like, so we can shadow drop Hollow Knight Silk Song, is what you're telling me. That can't happen, is what you're saying.
I don't know if they're ever gonna drop Hollow Knight Silk Song.
I sort of want them to do it, to be honest.
Andy, you know what? I got a better idea for you. What if?
Go ahead.
What's a AAA?
He's just gonna try. He's gonna try to crush your
I'm gonna analog
indie
you a
dreams
little
right
bit.
now. Andy is what he's gonna
Crush
try
my
to do.
indie dreams. It's impossible.
Ooh, I got it. Silent Hill. New Silent Hill's coming out. Okay.
Okay.
Whatever. It's ready.
Sure.
It's gonna come out in July. And then Kojima-san shadow drops Death Stranding 2.
Okay. Okay.
The week that Silent Hill is supposed to come out.
Oh man! First of all, I would do a wellness check on Jeff Keighley because that's the first thing I would do. That is priority number one in that scenario.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
Like
Hi,
you
I'm
would
Jeff.
expect Kojima-san to be like, I won't do that to Silent Hill. You know what I mean? Like
I think he would do that given the history.
well,
Yeah, I don't know if that was a,
that would
I don't know
be
if that
the
was a,
first
I don't know if that was a
bullet
good
point.
analogy,
yeah.
Steve. I feel
well,
like
top
well,
of the
it's not a good analogy as far as the Big Brother making the decision.
I
but
appreciate
it's like,
the comparison.
yay, Silent Hill's
get what
coming,
you're
and then it's
trying
like,
to say.
fuck
Yeah.
you, that, or like Metal Gear Solid 6. Yeah. Like it just,
But
it doesn't
listen,
feel good.
I understand it doesn't feel good.
It's not a problem it's not their problem. It's not Supergiant's problem. Like,
Right.
sorry,
right.
like we didn't mean to.
Sure.
But, like we are our own thing.
I don't think they should be dragged for this decision, is what I really want to say. I feel like
Yeah,
they did
yeah.
a thing. They gave us a gift. And listen, you know what's funny? This game came out.
Yeah.
None of us played it.
I don't have $30.
None of it.
You know how hard it is to get
I was
$30.
trying
these days?
not to
Hard
get.
to
I
see
was
$30
trying not to have you say that.
But also, you know what though, Andy, that's a good point to make, because what are the chances the three of us or indieRift podcast would ever get a code to review Hades 2?
Listen,
It's zero.
it is zero.
Probably true.
It's 0%.
You know what? I'm gonna ask for one because Matt doesn't have $30.
I don't have $30.
I'm gonna clip this one little part and be like,
Flip here.
Greg Kasavin, this is our boy Matt. Hear his story. Give him a code of the game.
Please.
But you know what though? This is actually nice. I feel like I invite developers who feel this has impacted them to come and share why. Because I don't make games.
A dev dive roundtable.
I don't
Mm.
develop games. I don't sell games. I'm the outside person looking in. And I feel like, they're going to do their thing. And I don't think it's just rough, man. I feel like I get both of your points really, really. You make some strong arguments. I understand completely. And I am coming around. But a part of me is just,
I
like,
get it.
deal with
Yeah.
it.
So I
You'll-
think
You also don't have blood in your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also
Just
dead
cold
on
as
the
hell.
inside.
I think
You're
I think
dead
at the-
inside.
I think at the end of the day, kind of where I land is definitely like in the middle, where I understand where a lot of these devs are coming from, where they're like, "Damn, feels bad, man," but in the same breath, it isn't like they didn't. It's not like they did it maliciously. You know what
No,
I mean,
of
they
course
didn't
not.
release
Right.
it maliciously
And
at
listen,
all.
And I get maybe other roguelikes thinking, shit, our roguelike is now going up against this roguelike. It's like the
Right.
roguelike of roguelikes. I get it. I totally get it. But you have, again, Crow Country. I don't want to keep calling them out because their two wasn't that bad. They were like, we get it. We'll be fine. We have a
Yeah.
we
No, but that's
we
what
build
I'm
an
talking about. Is
audience.
like those people, I feel like they have valid complaints, but they're not like, God
Right.
damn it, I'm fucked now. You know what I mean?
Your horror fans are still your horror fans. Like if they like roguelikes too, that's fine. They'll probably pick up both at some point. I mean, again, I think the early access is kind of swaying. Okay, I'll get to it at some point eventually. This thing is complete. It's out there, and I want it. Like I bought Crow Country. I got Animal Well. I got Heading Out, which I'm seeing for next week. Um, but yeah, it's a tough spot, and I'd love to ask our indie dev friends what their thoughts. I think their thoughts would be nice to hear.
On that note, if you don't have $30, there is a free to play game on our deal of the week. You could check out Puppet Master, the game. Which one do you put this in here?
This was me.
Andy.
This was me.
Andy, I don't know
love this.
anything about the 30-year legacy of Puppet Master.
My
the
God,
game.
dude.
Oh my God.
I know
my God.
nothing about this franchise. What is
So
this?
My God, it's so good. Go ahead, Andy. You do it.
I think in one of our pre-show discussions, I was telling Matt about the Zone of Interest, which is like the best World War II Nazi film ever made since Schindler's
right.
List. Puppet Master is also one of the best Nazi films ever made.
That's the fucking segue. That's your fucking
That's a
segue,
sentence.
dude.
That's a sentence that was said on this podcast.
We just
Okay. You are now cut off from saying anything more
No.
about
listen,
Puppet Master.
Listen, Puppet
No,
Master,
let him do it. It's great.
No,
There's
listen,
a bunch of.
its lore is rooted in Nazi Germany.
He's not wrong.
It's accurate. This is totally accurate.
I understand.
I had, again,
This is horrifying.
indie games.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Huge. So many of them. I had no idea this existed until I saw on Reddit it was going free.
It's a hero shooter.
Yeah.
And you're playing
You're
as
playing all the puppets.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
You're playing as Blade, as the Leech Woman. It's amazing.
There's a little baby doll.
They're all great.
It's creepy.
And
Anyway.
you know what? And you know what the best part is?
No, I don't.
It doesn't suck.
Oh,
It legit doesn't suck. It has very positive reviews.
put some
Over
love
a
into it.
thousand.
Is Tunneler in it?
Of course he's in it.
Yeah, right.
Look
You-
at
We
you
should.
two-
Can we
you two
make?
guys know too much.
Can our bonus show be us making Steve watch the first Puppet
Oh
Master?
my god. He's got to watch part 2.
The only thing you're gonna make Steve do is
gotta watch part two
have to
now, 'cause-
rush through the end of the show because we're already at an hour. So
Part 2
Um,
is when they're like in the humans go in the human dolls and they look all weird and plasticky and waxy.
It's fucked up.
That's nightmare
do
inducing.
I need to mute the two of you? Because I will. I'll just
No,
mute.
it's fine.
I'll mute you right here.
We'll talk
on
about
my
this
mixer.
later.
Talk about it later because we got the wish list roundup. We're going to touch on a couple of games here. We'll start with the two that I put on here just so that I could get through them here. So I got an email today about this game. It's coming out. I think they said it was coming out in 2025. I think. Actually, you know what? I will double check it.
Oh yeah, rush through your games. Just go check your email about it.
I have the email. Wait, no.
Like we're running out of time. Give me 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hold
so
on.
2025.
Let me
So 2025, it's called Designated Demigod, and this game looks so cool. It looks like a RPG sort of beat 'em up with like hand drawn art. Like this best I could kind of describe it, but it looks like it's like right up our alley. It's a combo RPG where you and your pup piece together flashy combos to dismantle a plethora of enemies, discover your hidden powers, and all that fun stuff. Anyway, just check that out. It's on my wish list now. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, this got to go on my wish list. So on the wish list, looks absolutely gorgeous. The other one that I put on here, this is the one that's coming out next month. It made me so happy. No.
Oh.
Blockbuster Inc.
Oh
the
my
movies.
god.
The
This
movies.
is the
game.
movies.
I have been waiting for the movies to come back. Like you can't get the movies to run without having like an old ass Windows like emulator thingy. Like it's almost impossible to play the original the movies, let alone Stunts and whatever the expansion was called, Stunts and
Didn't even know that there was an expansion.
Yeah, it's yeah. I was a huge fan of the movies. I loved making a movie studio. This looks like it turns it up to 11. Like it looks like there's more Sims style involved, like keeping your stars happy in their social life, like not just by giving them movie roles and like making sure their popularity is good, like all that stuff. It looks like it's much more in depth. I cannot wait. This is coming out. I think it was June 6th. But it's it's a day one for me. I put in for a review code for that, so hopefully that'll come in and I'll be able to tell you all about it, because the movies was such a time in my life where I would sit there for hours just. It was like my World of Warcraft. Like, I would just sit there for freaking hours on end making movies. But anyway, who put a Kimbot on here? I think that was you, Andy.
Ooh,
This game looks so fucking good.
Oh
Yeah, it
my
looks
god!
really good.
So these are my 2 selling points. Selling point the first.
Selling point first.
This is from the makers, or the maker, I should say, of Pumpkin Jack.
Love
One
that
of the
game.
best 3D platformers ever released. Period. Second selling point. This is giving Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
I fucking
Look
literally,
at this.
definitely.
Yes.
Look at it, boys.
It looks
I
so
am
good.
obsessed.
It looks incredible. And we know the pedigree. We know that it's going to be great. Hopefully we can talk to them about that too.
I
So,
always love when a really great developer, like their sophomore game, it always blows your mind, because the first one's great, but it's just the building blocks.
Also-
And this looks like night and day.
Pumpkin Jack, I feel like, took a long time too. Like, I feel like that was
It was, because remember, it was just the one guy, dude.
yeah.
Just the one.
So I'm
dude.
wondering if, like, the success of Pumpkin Jack, because I know it was successful, it had to be.
Well, he actually, made his own studio now.
That's what I was saying. Like, it
Yeah.
had to have grown to the
He's
point
got
where
people.
he could
Yeah.
have add some scope.
Mhm.
Definitely. I mean, Wishlist hard. Next up on the Wishlist roundup, we have Neo Duel Backpack Monsters. Who threw this on here?
So actually, I threw this on here because Sunny Rads tagged me in it in the chat, and it looks pretty rad. So it's like there's a game called Backpack Battles that got kind of big on YouTube a little while ago, and this is that plus Pokemon, and it looks pretty fun. It's a PvP auto battler. You kind of optimize your bag and the Pokemon type things in it, and it looks pretty fun.
It has
Yeah.
like 5 developers. I'm looking at the Steam page right now.
Really?
Rogue Duck, Tiny
Yeah.
Mice, and Dice Hit developed it all together. Yeah, it looks like I guess what you do is you like pack your backpack, and then that backpack goes and fights another person's backpack.
Another person's backpack. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like it's like however you synergize the items and the monsters you have in the backpack
Correct.
kind of like work
And so
together.
it's like
kind of-
hit.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You're healing, I'm healing,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
freezing. Yeah, it's a bunch of shit.
I'm good for stuff like that. I like that.
Yeah, it looks
kind of
cool.
thing. The last one on our list this week is Rogue Voltage.
I don't know.
You don't glowing review. I
So,
don't know.
That's all. That's what
Coming out
so-
tomorrow.
I saw this game come across my Twitter and immediately clicked on the Steam link. I went to it and I was like, "Holy fuck, this game looks amazing!" I think it's a turn-based tactical roguelike with Slay the Spire like map navigation plus some like build the town stuff.
Uh-huh.
The but the basis of it and your attacks are this like backpack space that you have, and you're engineering all these different nodes in your backpack to like optimize attacks and shit.
Yeah.
And it just looks fucking bananas. And I'm gonna like I have to buy it because it looks too unique and crazy to not play this.
This is like Scope Creep, the fever
The
dream.
game.
The game.
Okay, guys, what if we had like a turn-based roguelike? That's a pretty good idea, don't you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what if we like utilize inventory in like a different way? Wouldn't that be cool?
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Okay,
but like,
but
and then like,
what if it was like a Tetris puzzler?
Okay.
While you're trying to fight.
but also like 1920s networking phone calls.
Hold, please. Hold,
Oh,
please.
fireball! Okay. I'm gonna zap you.
Also,
Sure.
Matt, you're on the Steam page.
What?
You're quoted here in the reviews. It says, "Holy shit, yes!" Some dude from Twitter. That's got to be you.
That's gotta be you.
That's got to be you.
That's gotta be you.
Some dude from Twitter.
These reviews are great. Quote, this roguelike deck builder has a great twist from Rock Paper Shotgun. An extremely unusual take on the genre by PC Gamer. Not a single word about it being good or bad. Just
But then the last one is holy shit, yes.
Some dude from Twitter.
I don't know. This looks
it did
so
win
rad.
some indie game, game of show kind of things, and Hamburg and DevCom and all that fun
It's
stuff.
got a demo also. We should try it out, guys. Well, Matt's gonna buy it.
Well, Matt, you gotta
Matt's gonna
come back
sell
and
his
let us
body
know
to
what
buy
it's
this
all
game.
I'm gonna do it.
And
Fuck
finally,
you, Hades 2.
just bringing this podcast to our final topic of the show. We're going long, but I'd be remiss if I didn't hit our first ever mailbag question.
Oh boy.
Hell yes.
We have been putting out, so what we're doing is we're going to be asking for questions via our TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. It'll be a video from one of us that are going to do a little call to action, let you know the games we're going to talk about, and we're going to ask you for mailbag questions. And we got our first one from Matt. Get your thing off of there. I can't.
Yeah, Matt.
Okay.
Matt
I can't read it.
Yeah. No, no, because you're. I mean, I know who it is, but I want just get it off. Anyway, Mike Kirsch via Instagram. An Instagram comment is where we got this from. Hey there, Sam.
What?
Love the acronym.
Yeah, see, I had no idea.
Steve, Andy, and Matt.
I was a complete idiot, and I was like, "Who the fuck is
You
Sam?"
didn't get that?
No.
I did the same thing that Steve just
you're
did.
both
Yeah,
smooth
no.
Who the
brain
fuck is
idiots.
Sam?
I just finished Tales of Kenzera. It was Zao. Is that how you say that last part? Zao.
I said Zao.
Zao. And its exploration of grief and loss reminded me of another small game that explored the same themes. Tequila Works' 2017 game, Rhyme. It seems that the indie landscape is more willing to explore deeper, complex themes generally. Why do you think indie games are where these emotional stories can thrive? What kinds of themes would you like to see explored that have an impact on the larger industry?
Very simple answer for this.
Sure.
And I think it's the answer.
Yeah.
Indie games are allowed to take risks in all facets of their design far more frequently than anything created by a AAA studio because they're not bespoke to shareholders.
Yes. And I would go as far as to say I would change one word in that sentence from allowed to explore to need to explore.
Sure.
I think it's necessary in order to stand out, in order to be bigger than just the bloops and bleeps and the gameplay. Being able to tell those stories can help rise your boat with the tide, as it were. There are stories that really should be told and need to be told, and emotions that should be explored and need to be explored. And I love that. I really do. What about you, Andy? Why do you think that is?
I think just by virtue of being an indie game, and we've heard countless stories on our interviews throughout the years of people's own lives having such an impact, it drives them to make a game.
Yeah.
We've had a guest on the show who was going through a divorce. He had no experience making games, and he wanted to make a top-down tactic style RPG to tell the story of his divorce to help get through it. I think indies allow that because, again, could you imagine being at Capcom and being like, listen, I just lost my wife from cancer. I want to do a game about that. It's like,
right.
How about you don't do that and just do Resident Evil 20 instead?
Can you just make a big monster and then we
now
just all fight that monster?
I will say here's the difference between what indie games and AAA games do. Indie games aren't subtle with their themes. A lot of them just smack you in the face. I think AAA devs, while they make a game that appeals to a wider market and audience, they like to sneak messaging in sometimes. Like Kojima's games, Metal Gear especially, that whole thing is I miss my daddy. That man has daddy issues. I think his dad passed away at a young age and he was fatherless for a large part of his life. and the Snake big boss dynamic is him and his dad, which is it's not in your face. It's not him putting his heart on his sleeve, like an indie game dev would do. But I think we could use some more of that.
Yeah, you
And
just have
again,
to sit through 4.5 hours of
of
cutscenes
cutscenes
per game
per act.
for that.
You do get Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, and all. Like you do get those themes.
Look at God of War. God of War took a turn in the more that went from a man full of rage
Right.
to just the story of a single father when you break it down to its most basic fundamental elements. Last of Us too. Like again, there's this apocalyptic backdrop, but it's a family story. It's of loss, and it's living in this twisted, like upside down reality of like where we are worse than the actual monsters that are running around outside.
I do though. I think that at the end of the day, it's up to those people to tell those stories, up to the indie devs to tell the stories that are closest to their hearts, and I think it's easier for them to tell those stories because they're closer to the work.
I think there was a two-parter here.
Yes, there is. What kinds of themes would you like to see explored that could have an impact on the larger industry?
That's a tough one.
There are a lot of, like, The Last of Us 2 put a lesbian relationship forefront. And there were a lot of people that had issues with that. Like it was a controversial take, even though it was just a love story and a story of loss and all that. It just didn't seem like the larger AAA audience was like ready for it, I guess. And so like when I think about themes like that, I think that the more mainstream you want a theme is what I think should be focused on. And I think that one of the biggest ones is probably mental health, just in general. Like more stories about depression or about anger or
that's Senua. That's Senua.
There's Senua, but like Senua does it where this character's hearing voices. This is schizophrenia. What is it like? I don't know. Kill the monster. Like it's a little bit sterile in that sense to me anyway. It's like a little bit sterile. I thought it was AAA-ified.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, the first one wasn't really. I didn't feel like it felt like.
I mean,
its blend of using that in a gameplay mechanic worked extremely well.
Didn't they consult actual folks with schizophrenia or like?
Yeah, I feel like
that game.
That is actually pretty good. I mean, it definitely
they did the research.
Yeah,
yeah.
But I agree.
I'm not saying it wasn't effective. I'm just saying,
and that's when they were still indie when they made Hellblade.
Right.
Hellblade 2 jury's still alive. If that's going to be more like about action and less about mental trauma, then you can say, well, now this has been
AAA-ified.
Yeah,
right.
You've lost the soul.
Yeah,
I probably would agree with you though. I think that I'm going to pick that one too. I think mental health, even though it does pop up subtly in a lot of games in different ways, I think that is a huge one that could use some exploration and would help in undudifying the industry.
I'm going to go with just vulnerability, like showing like all of our heroes shouldn't be these perfect, creatures that are infallible and have no flaws and don't get to grow. I feel like as long as you can capture like the human experience, because we all suffer on some level, and just like drop the mask and show that we are vulnerable, and it's a bit of a broad theme because we've covered so much. Like you mentioned like a lesbian love story, even like FF16 had a gay character and he was also had a love story in that game, and that caught me off guard. And I feel like games like Last of Us helped make other AAAs more comfortable in tackling those kind of things. I think that's also key. Like, tell your story from a genuine perspective, and others will follow your example.
You
And I
got you
feel
got to
like, you know,
the most important thing is that you have to be real,
you have to
and
be.
it has to
because-
come from a place of genuine. It has to come from a genuine place.
People-
if
people
you're
can
doing it
sniff that
just
shit out.
yeah, exactly. Like
Ooh, I got one. Addiction. That's a good theme.
Mm.
I just popped in my brain.
and you know what? Like there are a lot of games do tackle addiction, but it's always bad. It's always like the bad guy or like the joke guy. It's
Right,
never
it's never the recovery
right.
and the
It's it's
Well,
it's,
yeah. Also, on the note of mental illness, like there's always like a stigma
Yeah.
predominantly attached. Like there's always like we can use it as a gimmick for like the twist or like
or the bad guy.
to explain the villain away in some capacity.
right.
Yeah.
Not just the theme, but also like changing the way you tackle it as well.
Mhm.
Could also be considered.
Yeah.
Great question, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the question. Folks, again, if you want to write to us, just comment on, really, you could comment on any of our posts. And if it's for the show, you know, we'll put it on the doc and we'll read it.
Yeah, you can text Steve at 917 for no, I'm kidding.
Hey.
Yes, you can text me. Thank you
Like
so
a
much
du-
for
like
watching.
I almost said dual screens, like an indieRift like hotline. Did you imagine
Indie
we had that?
hotline.
Yeah.
Remember, kids, ask your parents' permission before dialing.
$9.99 a second.
Oh man, the WCW hotline. What a shit show that was. Anyway, folks, that's going to do it for us here at the indieRift podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to follow us on social media, we're at indieRift pretty much everywhere. Follow us there. Look for us. Put us in the Google machine. We're the first thing that comes up. That's right. Numero uno. Number one. Yes.
And it's not gonna say, did you mean this?
Yeah.
No, it's definitely not.
No, it is not. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, viewers. And as always, please be excellent to each other.